Everybody knows what's going on. Well, good afternoon. Been another long week for a lot of us. It looks like time change kills us, even when it doesn't. Well, with us today is Beth Schneider, and she is with the South Dakota Department of Education, and she administers the Jobs for America's Graduates. So the JAG, it's easy to remember JAG. Beth is also a former adult education teacher in South Dakota and has provided training through Mitchell Technical Institute for years. So she has a wealth of background of working with the same students that we work with every day. So Beth, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Kim. So I appreciate being here to share with you about JAG because I could talk about JAG forever. And Kim said I have about 3 to 4 hours. You guys are on here. So no, seriously, it won't take that long. But I want to make sure that you have a good overview of what JAG is. So it's never a good presentation without having a PowerPoint. So let's start with that. Let's see. Oh, that's not even the screen I wanted to share. That's what I get for trying to have it all set up beforehand. Screen share this screen. Okay, so now I should be able to see it. All right. So this is the question everybody wants to know, right? Wouldn't that be great if we knew why young people didn't get a high school diploma? And you might be wondering, okay, so JAG, let's talk about what that is. But this is what people always want to know. Why don't students have a high school diploma? Why are they dropping out of school? Like, what's going on with them? And what's going on with my PowerPoint here? Well, this is going to take forever. See, Kim, this is why we're supposed to practice beforehand. Here we go. Oh, no, there we go. Okay, so if you're not, I don't know how familiar you are. So I have a master's in adult education. When I started at Cornerstones, I actually have an elementary degree. So I went to school, I taught elementary school. And then when I started at Cornerstones, I was really curious. I attended one of Becky's STAR reading trainings. And Becky, are you still involved with that? Yes.
Yes, we're training right now, actually. So
all right. So the STAR reading is still just, you know, when I was going through it, I was like, this is not new information. If you're trained in elementary, then it's very much in alignment with what we know for how to teach young people how to read. It's very similar. So I wanted to know what was different for adult learners. And so if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, it's about our students, right? About meeting their needs. If they don't have things like breakfast, they're not going to be able to learn. They don't think about these other things, the self-actualization going on to their high school diploma, if they don't have the basic needs of where they're going to get things done. Nothing new, it's all research. But so what are schools doing about this? So we thought the reason for tying in what schools are doing in awareness is so you know, when you're talking to people, what are some of the reasons that people are dropping out and what are schools doing about it? If you go to the Department of Education website, there is this multi-tiered framework. I didn't even know about tiers and education and all this kind of stuff until I started working in Department of Education. And these universal, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not. Can you see it? Okay. So these universal strategies are things that schools can do for all of the population. It affects 80 to 90% of students. And you're looking at it going, oh my gosh, this is a ton of things over here. Yeah. And it's in small print and you can't read it because the first time I saw it too, I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of stuff they're doing. And then we have targeted intervention or strategies. These are tier 2 supports. And then the intensive ones, those are like when we have a student who might need one-on-one or they put him in placement. So I wasn't even familiar with all those. And once we started, I was like talking to some of our school counselors and mental health, and they're like, oh, well, JAG is completely a tier 2. And I'm like, oh, bonus. Okay. So you might be wondering, like, what do schools do? You can go out and find this multi-tiered framework. And these are all the options that are available for educators and schools that are happening in our schools across South Dakota right now. You can check with parents and say, hey, have you checked into this, that, or the other thing and see what their school might have. So that brings us to what JAG is then. JAG is a tier 2 in the education terms of it. And JAG stands for not anything to do with the military, not anything to do with court services or, you know, like what's this? Mark Harmon is not going to come on here and share some JAG stories with us, but it's for Jobs for America's Graduates. And it truly is about, that's what our mission is. It's about getting students to graduate and helping them find employment, whatever that might look like. It's a program that's actually supervised in the Department of Education. And so I am an employee of the state of South Dakota, and it's a proven program to help students persist through graduation. Words that we don't use anymore, but are much more meaningful to some older stakeholders, more conservative stakeholders, is it's a dropout prevention program. And then students are like, who said I was going to drop out? Honey, you got 75 absences. I'm not really sure why you're still in school, right? So Jobs for America's Graduates is a state-based nonprofit. And so we have 39 affiliates across the nation, and most of them, all but 10 of them, run as a nonprofit. So that's, I'm on the board there for Cornerstones also. And it's really, I love working with Kim and Becky, because we get what a nonprofit is and how that works together. And so bringing that experience to the state agency of Department of Education and having this program really mirrors each other well. So like I said, our number one goal is graduation. Jobs, graduation, that's it. Here's some Todd County students, here's some Wagner students. So we're trying to get students across that finish line. There's a lot of buzzwords in education, you know that. There's a lot, yeah, I thought I knew a lot of acronyms when I was in adult basic education, right? But then I came to DOE. Oh, state government has a lot more. But we talk about target population, student mental health, graduation rates, all these kind of things, right? And that's about affecting them. You know about having a workforce ready and the soft skills that students need. You hear about those things for the adults that you're working with. It's easy for me to talk about it, but let's hear from a student.
Hello, my name is DeAndre. I'm a third-year JAG student. My childhood was pretty normal, I guess you could say. I had both parents growing up. The only thing was we moved around a lot from house to house in town. My JAG specialist is the first person I knew about my anxiety, the first person I ever told about my anxiety problems. She's always making sure I'm on top of my stuff, always trying to get me to be on top and at my best. JAG has definitely given me an advantage. Thank you.
So DeAndre didn't have a lot to say, but he's sharing about his anxiety. And we know that students today, especially post-COVID, anxiety is a huge piece of the things that they have going on in their lives. The key component of JAG is this trauma-informed care. So yes, we want to have employer engagement in that, but the trauma-informed care, when DeAndre's talking about his JAG specialist, he's basically flying under the radar at school. You know, it's how far can he get through school and not really have to talk to anybody? Now, I'd like to say that DeAndre did graduate, but he didn't. He dropped out of school, and now his girlfriend's pregnant, and I think they just had a baby actually last month. But the unique piece about JAG is that we follow up with our students for 12 months after their senior year. Last year, we had twin boys that didn't graduate, and we keep on top of them. We're on DeAndre all the time. Like, we know what's going on in his life. I don't, but his specialist does, and she shares it with me because we want to know what's going on in your life. Like he said, his family didn't even know. They moved around a lot. These things affect our young people, which then affect our adults who are in adult basic education. In JAG, we have what's called project-based learning. You know how important that is in adult education too. Like, if it doesn't have relevant meaning, what is the point? Right? They have no reason to be there. So thinking about what our students want to do, our JAG classroom aligns really well with like CTE classes, current tech ed classes, because those are more project-based classes where students get to learn things. I love this, our middle school students. We have 2 JAG middle school programs, one in Andy Central and one in Wagner. Because the sooner we can, I used to tell people when I do adult education, I'd say, you know, it's one thing for somebody to drop out in maybe 10th or 11th grade, but when did they technically check out of school, right? When did they check out? Maybe 8th, 9th grade, right? That transition between middle school and high school is so critical for their success. So I love to get our new middle school students. We started a poster presentation where they get to come and present, and then they have to have some interactions with some adults who are then interviewing them. Because for too many young people, it is about the difficult situations or that anxiety that they have, and the positive learning experiences are super limited. You know, they're in their classes and they're trying to figure out, what's going on, and they're late with their homework and they didn't get any sleep. And so how are they feeling valued? So JAG is one way that we can help that in the classrooms. These young people, like, I just love them because these are our future. They're bright. They have wonderful ideas. Like here, she wants to be a mental health nurse because these are the things that affect our students. But it's like I tell them, if you don't graduate, it's not going to happen. If you don't have that high school diploma, if you don't have those skills. Here's another one of our students, Charlie.
As I was sitting at my desk, I was thinking of ways that JAG, Jobs for America's Graduates, has helped me find my true potential. I was flooded with so many ideas. When I first joined JAG, I never knew what to expect. JAG has helped me realize that there's room for people like me in the world, and that if I really work for them, my dreams can come true. I'm a freshman now, and as a 7th grader, I didn't really know what I wanted, but I was willing to find that passion. The day my former JAG specialist came into my room to recruit members to join this program, I thought it was for track. Since the teacher was a track coach, I thought he was sending out flyers to join track and field. I'm so grateful in the end it was JAG. I was kind of new to it, but I knew a little because my older brother joined it. He never went into enough detail about it though, so I didn't know what was to come. My 7th grade teacher, Mr. Cartney, was super energetic, and he never made anything boring. We went on field trips to colleges. As the year was ending, I knew so much more things than I did before. Sadly, due to COVID, we got the rest of school off, which led to the end of my first year in JAG. But that wasn't going to stop me from finding my true self. The new school year started, and I signed up for JAG as soon as possible. We had new teachers, and honestly, that kind of scared me. But my new 8th grade JAG specialist, Mr. Raisby, told me it was okay to be nervous. We got into more advanced learning about JAG. I've never had an in-person interview with someone. It pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I learned that if you have enough courage, you can do anything. Our state director, Beth Schneider, came to our school to give us JAG t-shirts. All of us having them on felt like a big family, and I felt comfortable with my classmates. I was just then starting to realize why JAG was my favorite subject in school. It was the people, the community, and the things we learned. I'm not that same kid from 2 years ago. I know that getting out of your comfort zone is okay, and that to not be afraid to go for what you really want. Today, I'm on our student council, a JAG officer, hired at my local grocery store Buies, and an athlete. My journey doesn't stop here. I will continue to grow, learn, and find my true potential.
And I'm super happy to report that we just elected Charlie as one of our new first state officers for Jobs for America's Graduates. So we'll have our first officers, and he's one of the school representatives. So we'll get to see more from him. And it's so exciting to see young people get connected. And you heard him. He was like, I don't want to be in track, right? Like, I'm not going to be in track. I'm not going to be in those things. But he just didn't feel connected to his school. We know when students are connected and they feel part of a family, that's what's going to help them stay in school. He also went through, as all of our young people have now, COVID. He has had a different JAG specialist every single year that he's been in JAG. That transition of teachers in small schools, in large schools, really affects our students. And you know, from working with them in adult education, if you're the one that does their intake, they want to stick with you, right? It's like what do they call that? Like with an animal that inbreeds, like as soon as they're hatched, right? Whatever they see first.
They're imprinting, right?
Is imprinting, yes. And so that's what it's almost like, right? For our adult education students when they come in, oh, who do I need to talk to? And so I'm pleased to hear about the success that you're having with the online classes and people being able to connect with them. Oh, I already heard from you, Charlie. So JAG has 10 components. And so we have an oversight body at the state level and also at their local level. Ideally, they have different committees already in their school, which are helping them decide who are the right students for JAG. When I explain JAG to most people, they're like, yeah, every kid should have it. My kid should be in JAG, for heaven's sakes. Heck yeah. But students also have to want to be in it. There's the career association component where they take leadership capabilities and leadership roles. There's also, again, that program staff that's so important, and employer engagement. So I look at this model and I think, boy, this looks really familiar to what we do in adult education, right? Like you have committees and you have program applications that we work with, and you have program staff. And so it very much aligns with what we're trying to do and making sure that we follow up with our students and we enter all that data. I can't tell you how important data is both in my program and in your programs, right? But if we don't have those long-term commitments of persistence and priority, it's not going to happen. It just doesn't. Too many times people want to just do one or two pieces, right? And that's not what connects everybody. We have to have all of the pieces, because if we only have just the oversight and maybe a program staff or a program staff and our students, not going to work. You have to have all those pieces together. So you might still be like, JAG sounds great, but I still don't know what it is, Beth. It is a class that is in middle schools and high schools. So it's an elective credit. So like they take band, they take JAG, right? So you could just go to your JAG class. If you're going to take English, you might take JAG, right? So the JAG specialist, our specialist is a teacher. They're an employee of the school district, and then they recruit students, they provide instruction, they advocate for their JAG students. One of my JAG specialists says, basically, I'm like a vehicle. I'm like a vehicle for connections. That's what my job is helping students figure out who the other people is in their district that can help them. These resources, like I showed you on that very first page, there's a ton of resources, but if you don't know what those are, right, how can you access them? You're not going to go out of your comfort zone to find that. And also to help build relationships with employers. The key piece about JAG is that we follow up with our students for an additional 12 months after their senior year. I tell them, once you're in JAG forever. No, I'm kidding. It's just 12 months, but odds are they're going to follow up with their specialist for a long time. So whether they graduate or not, for 12 months after their senior year, then we're following up with them. What are they doing? And then my role is to oversee that and help grow it and educate others and recruit and fundraise and all that good stuff. So like I said, the key piece about JAG is our 12 months of follow-up. We also check with our students every May and every September. So any student who was on our JAG roster for that entire year, like maybe they moved in October, in May, we're still finding out, are they connected in school somewhere? Even if it's not in South Dakota, it's across another state, we're checking those records. Then in September of the next year, because I don't know if you've heard how many kids got lost, like in the Sioux Falls School District alone, over 900 students, right, got lost during COVID. Like they don't know what happened to them. They just dropped out of school. They didn't re-enroll anywhere. Like they don't know what happened to them. That's crazy, absolutely crazy, right? So one of the key pieces about JAG is we track down our students all the time. It's a tier 2 support, like I said, and we have national opportunities. It's about impacting those graduation rates, employability, and positive outcomes. Here's Danny.
Hi, my name is Daniel Lakota. I am currently a junior attending Lyman High School. I live on the Lower Bull Reservation with my 3 brothers and parents. Growing up on a reservation was hard. Between seeing drug and substance abuse as well as alcoholism, I've seen people struggle every day mentally. Roughly 65% of Native Americans suffer from generational trauma. Many dropped out of high school due to this and never left the reservation. I truly thought that was my future after dealing with depression my freshman and sophomore year and struggling the beginning of my junior year. JAG has provided me with information about college, how to prepare for an interview, and new friends and experiences. Without JAG, I truly don't know where I'd be with my mental health and in school. I was asked, how has JAG helped me find my true potential? Well, to be honest, I didn't think I had me. I gave up on myself this summer, and I actually planned on dropping out. This program was offered to me when I was registering for my high school junior classes. I didn't really think much of the program and wasn't excited. But as of Christmas, my grades were better, my GPA was higher, and my self-confidence was a lot higher. JAG has also provided me with goals to strive for and the motivation to do better, be better, and defy all the odds I have against me.
What I think is most amazing about Danny is like summer, right? Like in summer, she was like not ready. She was signing up for classes and she was going to drop out. And by Christmas, she was thinking about how important a GPA is. That's how quickly things can change for people in high school. And I think a lot of adults forget that, right? Like they forget that for a student, 3 weeks is a lifetime. Oh my gosh, it's a whole lifetime. But their world can turn around that quick, but it can also go downhill that quick. They can have some sort of trauma, and you might not have thought they were going to fall off the radar. And now all of a sudden they dropped out of school. And 2 months ago, you were like, what's up with this kid? They were perfectly fine. That's why they need those connections in school for that stuff all the time.
Hi.
Danny's great. JAG also has these national opportunities, like I talked about. I love this picture because he looks like he's like a poster child, but that really is one of our students. That's one of our JAG students here in South Dakota. If you're familiar with things like FFA or HOSA or FBLA, right? So JAG aligns with those. We have a career association. We have a leadership development conference. Last week here in Mitchell, we had our career development conference where students compete in different things. And then next month we'll be in Orlando, Florida. So I'm just really excited about that opportunity. This last year is our delegate that we took to Dallas, Texas last year. So we had 27 students that we took last year. I have 41 I just registered yesterday. I was like, woo! So I'm pretty excited and they're excited. So when they get to have these opportunities, you know, this plethora of students looks different than when you look at the FFA or the HOSA. This is a clearer reflection of our students in our schools in South Dakota. And that very much aligns with what we do in JAG and who we are. Let's hear from one more student, just because I love to hear from them.
Losing a parent, changing schools, self-harming, being sexually assaulted, attempting suicide. That about sums up the first 15 years of my life. Good morning. My name is Thea. I'm a senior, and I have been in the JAG program for 4 years. JAG, Jobs for America's Graduates, is an amazing program which was originally developed to increase the graduation rate. Today, JAG is also preparing students for their future, whether it be getting ready for college or the workforce. JAG has helped me overcome some of my biggest barriers. Being in JAG has given me the advantage because it has taught me how to use my voice. JAG has helped me assure myself that I will be successful. The advantage of JAG is being able to know I will be successful in any path I may choose. JAG has clearly shown me how the world is full of vibrant colors when all I saw was black and white. My JAG story may seem complicated, but JAG saved my life. Thank you.
And we always talk about our JAG family. So in JAG, we're a JAG family. That's what students need, is that connection to each other. So you might be thinking, okay, this sounds fabulous. And again, why are we learning about this? But because part of it is you can advocate for having JAG in your local school district too. Okay, so we know that we need opportunities for our young people, so that way they're not going into adult basic education, or when they do seek out adult education, it's not because they need a high school diploma. It's because they are working on other skills that they need for maybe an improvement in their jobs or something like that. So my role to share with you today, did I stop sharing my screen? Yes. Okay. It's like I'm talking, I got all the screens, right? And so it's really to help you see what opportunities might be available in districts. I didn't show you our JAG website, but if you pulled up the Department of Education and our JAG website, we have schools in, like I said, Wagner, Bennett County. We're in all 4 schools in Sioux Falls. We are not in Yankton or Vermilion or Huron, but I just had a really great conversation with Huron's superintendent and high school principal just Tuesday of this week. And so they would let me know, we are only taking a limited number, 3 new programs a year, because at this point, I am the only one who is here for JAG, like at the state level. Well, you can only support students and support programs if you have that limited and you provide that opportunity. We've had JAG in South Dakota this is 14 years. And I am the first time, 2.5 years ago, is the first time that the state finally invested in a full-time state director. You know, when you're pulled in too many different directions, that it doesn't happen, like nothing happens, just like those 10 components of JAG. If you're only doing piecemeal, that's why our students fall through the cracks. There's resources available to them, and JAG is one of them. And that's why Kim thought you might be interested in learning about JAG. So you could have more education for just one, interacting with your school and advocating for resources that help students stay in school, but also because part of my role is when the legislature talks about changing the compulsory attendance age again, or other avenues, there are resources available for young people in schools who are struggling. Sometimes it's just knowing what those are. So what questions do you have about JAG? Or just about me in general?
Oh, I have a couple. First of all, just to comment, the link is in the chat for the website. So I have 2 questions. The first one is, what is the student to teacher ratio that works best? Because I can totally see some school district grabbing on this because they don't have enough teachers in their school and they already overcrowded and blah, blah, blah. And so let's put 47 kids with this one teacher because how hard can it be?
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So in JAG for a particular classroom, we say that they need to have between, 12 and 15 students in a particular class. One JAG specialist can have basically a caseload of between 35 and 55 students. That includes their students in follow-up though. So like in Sioux Falls, they piloted it at Roosevelt School last year with they ended up with 12 by second semester. So she had 12 kids. This year, she has 47 students, right? But they also adjusted her schedule. So my role is to advocate for our specialists to not only have a planning period, but also a data entry period. So that way they can then data enter, right? But they can also make those connections and employer connections and follow up. So my role is key. Like just even this week, I was down to Wagner because just like Kim's saying, they don't have a teacher, right? So our JAG specialist in Wagner, they love their JAG program, but they didn't have an English teacher. So guess what? Their JAG teacher is certified to teach English. She had to teach 2 sections of honors English this year and JAG. Well, then they wondered why they're not getting the results in JAG because their students didn't get to go on any field trips to post-secondary schools. They didn't make employer contacts because nobody's there to cover her English classes. So we had those frank conversations about what's your plan for next year, because this didn't work well this year. So my role is to advocate for those things. But yes, schools see it. I tell them all the time, it's not a dumping ground for all of your troublesome kids. It's ones for those students who want to have leadership potential, right? All kids have leadership potential. Not all kids. I teach robotics in the Mitchell School. Not every kid has leadership potential, but it's those kids who want to be in not robotics. They have to be in robotics too, but those kids who want to be in JAG. And once they're in it and they start feeling connected, they're getting their friends to join in. So yeah, it is a problem though, but that's what my role is, to help advocate for that. Another question.
My second question is, how do we promote this in our schools? It's like, what do we, is there a format to say, hey, school, we really want you to look at this a little bit harder, as a parent, as a person who is begging you to keep your kids in school because I'm tired of enrolling them.
As somebody who's going to teach 2 youth diversion programs tonight, one for middle school kids and one for elementary age kids.
Are already signing out.
Yeah. And so it's very much those contacts that you have in the schools, making sure that they're like, hey, have you talked about a JAG program, or do you know about a JAG program? Because a lot of times, they say they don't know about it. Like literally, I have been to Huron 3 times with DOE and toured, and I reached out to them. And then just on Monday was the person, hey, we'd like to learn more about JAG, right? So it takes a lot of conversations and a lot of awareness, and then they need to see that it's being successful. So if like in Yankton, I've been trying to be in Yankton for, and had different connections with their workforce development. And one of their new Chamber of Commerce president is on the Department of Labor's workforce development. And he's like, I'm going to make this happen in our school board and I'm going to talk to them. I don't know if there's a magic answer yet, because we're trying, and just like getting other programs, it's trying to figure out like, who's the right person to make it happen? Is it the school? Is it somebody within the school who's going to be the one to teach it? Or is it somebody from the community, like the school board, going, hey, we need this program? Everybody has to come together for it. So just talking about it and getting the right people to make those connections, that's when it finally happens.
Well, and I keep thinking about small schools. Huron has a lot more resources than all the small schools, and there's a lot of small schools around Huron that don't have the same kind of resources.
Yep. And that's where a lot of people have asked me, well, I noticed that on the map that it's only just these little rural schools, in Mission and Martin and this kind of thing. Well, that's because for the 14 years, especially the first 12, when there was no state support and no state director, the schools that have come and gone through the years, when there was funding for JAG and when there wasn't, the ones that stayed saw it because they don't have other resources. Schools like Rapid City, they had JAG for 2 years and then they were like, oh, well, we can do this on our own, right? We can do career exploration and we can support our own students, no big deal. So when Sioux Falls came on board with it last year and they were like, well, why does Sioux Falls need it? They have like every resource like everywhere. But again, there's students who are falling through the cracks and not making connections to those resources. You might have them all, but if students don't know about them and students still don't feel connected, because there's so many, like if you ever walked into a store and go, I just need shampoo, right? Like just one kind of shampoo, then that's where it can be overwhelming too for a young person, and they're not going to even ask. So yeah, it's a lot. Small schools, large schools, universal JAG, that's my mission.
I have a question, Beth, if I may. This is Jeremy. So my question is, when you go out and make connections with these schools, is it typically the school reaching out to you, or is that initiated by you doing outreach to the schools?
Both, actually, it happens both ways. Because sometimes a school will reach out to me. I've presented at region principals meetings, superintendent meetings, school board meetings. And then I also work with our title program in Department of Education, who targets the schools that have an improvement plan. And so I just presented a couple weeks ago to the people, the school support staff specialists or something. They're the people who in the Department of Education, they contract with to help a school who's on an improvement plan. So then those people go back into the schools and say, hey, have you looked at JAG? Like this would be a really great, because they have to come up with a plan. Like, why are they behind graduation rate? Why do they have this population of students who are not where they need to be, whether it's academically or something? So it happens in a lot of different ways. And again, until you find the right person in that school who's going to jump on board with it, the school board has to approve it. They have to sign a memorandum of understanding. So like in Lyman, when they started a year ago, their school board wasn't 100% on board, but their superintendent was like ready to do it. Like, we're doing this and we've got the right person. And I was like, bonus. Well, guess what? Then we got it, but now their superintendent's gone because he moved to a different school, right? That happens all the time across our state. So now it's on that teacher to educate their school board and me. Like, I went to their last school board meeting and we talked about how JAG is impacting, and the kids, once the kids are there to tell their stories, I mean, you can't not help but love it.
So this might be kind of a pie in the sky question that I have here, but so I know that since you've taken over, that JAG has really taken off. And so because of the success that's been happening, has there been any discussion of expanding JAG even more, putting more staff on board? And because I can, I used to work in the K-12 system, and I can think of a lot of schools and communities that could benefit from JAG.
Mm-hmm. So our long-term is like short-term goal is that this year, like I said, we're taking on 3 new schools. Having to just limit that is challenging because I wanted to be in so many. But this way, when we go to the legislature to ask next year, because everybody's using ESSER dollars right now, right? All of their COVID dollars, and it's for learning loss. But when do those dollars run out? September 2024. So schools don't want to invest in a person or a program. They were going to build a building because the building will still be there. They don't want to invest in a person or a program because they don't know if that's going to be able to be funded. So my role, so even just having that conversation with Huron, with their interventionist, right? So they have an interventionist, but that person was pulled to go teach math because they didn't have a math teacher. Well, now we don't have any stats to show that our interventionist worked, because we could only do that part-time. Well, with JAG, you have to have your data in or you don't get a JAG program. So our ability to show the impact of JAG is what's going to make the difference for funding in the future. And so next year we have a plan, 2024, we have a plan to go in front of the legislature. I also have the unique ability to fundraise. So when they created my position as an FTE as a full-time employee in Department of Education, they gave me the ability to fundraise. The legislature did. Nothing like being part of Department of Education, right? And going to fundraise. Could you write a check to the Department of Education, please? So I have just set up connections with the South Dakota Community Foundation. So if you actually go onto the South Dakota Community Foundation, you can see that we have a Jobs for America's Graduates. We have both a long-term endowment and we have pass-through funds. So people can make a donation directly to there. So as we get corporate donations and dollars that support, then I'm able to better support a school to say, hey, we want to have these conferences, or, you know, you want to have this event and you want to come into the school. They're not buying their way into a school by any means, but I mean, it's certainly a different connection that funding has to be tied. You know that as well as I do. There has to be some funding because schools aren't going to just go. I mean, unless you're going to go to the wrestling tournament, you know, 3 days early because a snowstorm's coming, they're not going to pay for a JAG program, right? So there's just all of those different components to it. So not a pie in the sky. It's on my radar. Don't worry. What other questions do we have? Mr. Anderson, nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Coordinator Schneider. I apologize for my tardiness.
Yeah, well, we'll just hold you accountable to that next time. You have to be there.
Please, please.
What other questions does anybody have?
Thank you for taking time to speak with our delegation. I'm just, you know, at the risk of belaboring points you've already made, how, and I'm on this South Dakota Community Foundation site now. You're part of one of the initiatives. You said one of these.
No, actually, if you just look under the donate, let's see. Oh, thanks, Kim. Look at you being so efficient.
Thank you.
In the chat for me. Thank you.
And Beth, I just.
That's a statewide engagement.
Oh, that's,
Yep.
oh, yeah.
They're both on there, the JAG one and the South Dakota Statewide Family Engagement. And Beth, I just sent a introduction between you and Morgan at the Statewide Family Engagement Center.
Oh, perfect.
So you guys can work together or not, but you definitely should be.
Yes.
You both should just have that introduction to each other.
But Beth, can you summarize for me the intersection of high school graduation, high school equivalency, and serving those students at risk? I know you were touching on those relationships with local K-12, but from my knowledge, does JAG necessitate a high school diploma, or is an equivalency a potentiality as well?
Our goal is for students to graduate first, but we also follow up with them for that 12 months after graduation. So when a student, or not 12 months after their senior year. So if a student doesn't graduate, right? So they don't graduate with their cohort. We explain to schools, like schools actually have until the end of summer to report that and still keep that graduation rate. So they have, you know, May is graduation, but if a student comes back into summer school and then graduates, that still counts as on track graduation. So they actually have their 4 years plus a summer. That's important, right? That's super important details. But if a student doesn't graduate in that 4 years and a summer, they're not a lost cause, right? Like they could still come back and get a high school diploma in their 5th year. That's a harder lift, but we don't let our students go. So they could do that. Or say a student does their senior year, or maybe even their junior year, they're like, you know what, I'm going to drop out. Like I'm picturing Danny, right? You just saw that video of Danny, and she was talking about the summer of her junior year. She's going into her junior year. Well, what if she would have opted to drop out? Well, she was already in JAG. So if she would have dropped out like 2nd semester of her junior year, we would have still been on her the next September. And if high school diploma is not the right option for her, guess what? Where are you going to get your GED? Who's going to make that connection? We know it doesn't matter to us how a student gets their high school equivalency, but they can't go on to college. They can't do anything post-secondary without some sort of end terminal degree, high school diploma. You know, we have a couple students who are in special education, and they are going to get the diploma for your certification, basically your attendance diploma. Again, an end goal of some sort, what's right for that student. If it's GED, that's fine too. But like Becky and I both know, it's not an easy test, right? Like all of you know, it's much easier to stay in school. Actually, Karen, we had just talked about that in your office yesterday about how, you know, it's easier, like D's get degrees, tell people. Like,
Thank you. Yeah, well said.
yeah. So if you were not, just because we just talked about it too. So if you're on the South Dakota Community Foundation site. Let's see if I'm popped up here. You're sharing your screen, but it's just green. Think about it. Think about it.
We can see the South Dakota Community
Oh,
Foundation.
you can? Okay, good. It wasn't showing up on mine. So if you're looking there and you're looking under giving and support an existing fund. So we have an existing fund here and you were just to type in. I want them to put JAG, but if you just typed in jobs, we have our fund right there.
Yeah, I did type JAG and I got 0 results, so
I
thank
know,
you.
that's
All
why,
right,
because they don't have
gotcha.
how they're set up though, the first.
It's always interesting when the speaker freezes. We'll see if she comes back in. Beth, if you're talking, we cannot hear you. You froze up. Okay, you're blinking again. Now you're just muted.
I was like, whoops, that was too many clicks. But yeah, we just got that set up with the South Dakota Community Foundation literally the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Say it, another point, and this might digress too much, so you'll let me know, I trust. But you talked about legislative session in the future. I wondered what your sense was when you attended, if you did at all this past legislative session with all of the GED related compulsory school attendance resolutions and proposals. And then there was the Juvenile Justice Commission and that concurrent resolution about a third option, GED, high school diploma, and the third option, maybe it's apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, work-related, is JAG. Where do you fall in that? Are you going to be part of those conversations, and how do you get to the table there?
As a Department of Education employee, I'm not really sure how that all fits, and I probably don't have the authority to respond to that question in an educated way. And so definitely we are aware of the different conversations happening. The juvenile justice, like one of the people on that committee is on my board for Jobs for America's Graduates, VJ Smith. So when we were in peer, so we take our students to peer for, we call it capital conversation. So I try to model for them, as you know, as educators, you want to model the same thing that we're teaching. So when we do project-based learning, we have what's called capital conversations. It's our legislative day, but it's a 3-part project-based learning. Before session, they need to invite a legislator or other lawmaker who's, city officials, whoever, tribal members, who are affected by things that happen in legislature. That could be anybody, right? So they have to present to their students. And then when we go to peer, then it's about making those connections when you're in peer. And then now that the session has ended, we'll wait till after the governor does or doesn't sign the budget at the end of the month. Then they follow up, the students follow up then with whoever they did to wrap up that whole project. It's not a one and done, let's go to peer, woohoo. It's let's go to peer and see what's happening. So when our students went and we sat in the education committee and we got introduced, not because we were there to actually ask for money this year, but just to lay the groundwork, right? They were in the committee meeting where they were talking about the compulsory attendance age. As a DOE employee and our state Secretary of Education, we left the room because we are not part of those conversations at that level. The students, though, they can speak to it however they want to. And so we're just there to educate others for how they want to, because the students were really surprised how people were talking about, it's like saying it's a dropout prevention program. Well, who said I was going to drop out? The students are pretty miffed when you're telling them it's a dropout prevention program when they're a 10th grader. They're like, look, like I was walking down the hall and somebody thought I was going to drop out. What's that about? So they don't like that. It's a leadership, it's employability skills. Yes, we talk about it as stakeholders and adults as a way to engage students, but disengaged students drop out. They don't understand that piece, but we really need to be very careful with our language.
Wow, thank you for that perspective. I appreciate your candor and your insight there.
Yeah. Helpful information, Brandy? All right, Jonathan, any questions? No? No, I was clear as mud. Fantastic.
Sending
Well,
it
if
in.
if you guys do have any questions, or if you're like, oh, I know just the person in our school district, or I've got a school board member, or you should talk to this person, certainly you've got my information. Kim's got it. Like, just reach out, look up JAG DOE. I mean, it's easy to find. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about JAG at any point, because my goal is universal JAG, you know, across the state. Large schools, small schools, our students are being impacted, not because, you know, when I started in GED, gosh, a long time ago, when I did adult education, I was just like thinking about it the other day, and I'm thinking, oh, it'll be 10 years that I'm done with my master's. And so I started my master's. So it's probably been almost 15 years, probably. It's hard to believe when I'm only 28. No, right. But so, you know, when you start, you think, oh, we're going to do this for a couple years, and then everybody's going to have a high school diploma or a GED, right? It just doesn't work that way, right? You just think that. I still periodically see my very first client from Cornerstones around town, and she still doesn't have a GED, right? So I still see her, but there's lots of things that happen. And so how can we help our students sooner? And I just really want you to know that, like, if you did look up that, if you just look up that tier thing that I showed you and the back of it, where there's all that information, I was shocked at all of the different things that are available in our school districts across the state. So really, it's just tapping into the right people. And if they've never heard of it, then it's like, well, you've never heard of that? You should probably check that out. Somebody can share that information with them.
Beth, did you drop that link, or is that what Kim put in the chat? The tiers?
No, but I can put it
I
in there.
don't,
Would you
yeah, I don't
please?
have that one.
Well, thank you.
No, I'll just put it in there real quick. I was running a PowerPoint and everything. I can't do all that.
Oh, I know, with the multiple screens and monitoring chat and trying to maintain eye contact and replacing the slides.
Lots of times I take all my links and put them in a different screen ahead of time, so I start cutting and pasting them over.
Oh, you guys are so smart. Whoops.
You'd think we do this all the time, wouldn't
You would think. I don't think I actually
Oh,
pasted it
no.
as a paste.
I can see it now, multi-tier
Oh,
there we
framework.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, if anybody has any other questions, I don't know, Kim, do you wrap up with some kind of go get 'em team or anything?
If there's no other questions for Beth, I'd like to thank her for her time today. And I mean, really, don't hesitate to reach out to Beth. You got her email in there, and it's real easy to get to her. And I would love to work myself out of a job, but it hasn't happened in nearly 30 years. And I'm way more than 28, but I don't want to say how old I am. So we would love, yeah, because it's disheartening, and it just becomes more disheartening every day. And so if we can figure out ways to help advocate, so when the because a lot of times our teachers end up in the schools, and the teachers are like, I don't know what to do. And the administrator, I don't know what to do. And we're like, did you do this yet? So another tool for our toolbox to share with the schools when we're in there working with them. So thank you, Beth, for your time today.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate all of you guys and all the work that you do, because it is seriously needed. And we know that people don't have as much future as when they have an education.
Right.
Everyone have a good day.
Have a good day.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Thank
Bye.
you.